Hi everyone and welcome back. This is Sky just coming on to talk to you about another topic that was on my heart during this Cancer season. It has really been bringing with it a lot of healing potential for me and a lot of clarity. I find that, of course, the water seasons are typically the more psychic times of the year, but especially Cancer season for me, it really gives me a wonderful chance to reflect and get some clarity. So regardless of what timeline you're listening to this from, I want to talk about allowing the current chapter in your life to be what it is, because I feel like this is a hard thing for people right now. I feel like people have these grandiose visions. I feel like people have these needs to be seen in a specific way. I feel like the collective ego, not just the individual ego, is very strong right now. It wants to create something for itself. It wants to see a change. It wants to set a very specific manifestational goal, and it wants to achieve that very specifically with a lot of conditions and parameters. And I feel like it doesn't settle easily. So it's a very unsettled period of time. As again, we are in a liminal phase. I've made a video about that. I'll link it below, meaning that we are kind of like between two polarities right now. It's very normal here to see that, maybe you've had a lot of accomplishments or you've had a lot of things come to fruition. They're done. And now you're in a space between those things and the inherent next thing. So, when this happens, people begin to, plan for new horizons. They start to get into that very Three of Wands archetypal mode where, it's wonderful for dreaming. It's wonderful for, thinking like, what's my new North Star? What am I moving toward? But it can also be a time where people begin to reject or cut away some of the elements of themselves that are also needing to just be what they are. I'm seeing, for example, a lot of people here who may struggle to allow the current chapter to truly be what it is, which can essentially take the form of rushing, or it can take the form of trying to plaster over the experience with something that's more seemingly appropriate in the time. Say, for example, someone is experiencing less inflows of money into their life. During a paradigm like this, they might try to start borrowing a lot of money to maintain something that is more congruent with their vision. They might start to dress in more status symbol ways to try to give a different signal. They might try to also begin watching a bunch of videos about how to make more money, or start trying to implement a lot of ideologies about how they could change what they currently have. I'm not saying that people should not try to change a negative financial situation or a negative energetic situation. But I want to posit this idea. For those of you who've done well in your lives, or you've accomplished something really incredible, or you've risen from some type of negative situation, once that happens, the chapter in which the lack was there becomes really vital to energizing the sort of like finality of that transformation. I want you guys to really think about this here, about the vital nature of experiencing a low point in order to motivate and fuel the next journey. Because when we try to plaster over a low point, or when we try to force something to be what it's not because it feels painful to us, or it feels like we're not just right this second in the present moment 1,000,000%, manifested and self-actualized, what we do is we actually desaturate the entirety of our narrative by not allowing a certain story to be what it actually is. So it may be harder in the long term to actually manifest what it is that you're wanting by trying to plaster over the negative issues that you're currently facing. For example, if you borrow money right now or go into debt in order to maintain a lifestyle that's not affordable, it's going to take longer to get back to that in the future. Whereas if you can accept where you are now, there may be pain or there may be a feeling of lack, but that might be really important in motivating you 5 to 7 years down the line. What I notice about people who go through difficulties or people who face adversities is that those are deliberate on behalf of the higher force a lot of the time. And we don't feel that way in the moment, though. Like when the adversity is actually happening, we don't feel good about it. We don't feel like it's contributing. We don't feel that it is a positive thing, and we want to plaster it over. We have a breakup and we want to have a rebound. We want to get straight back into a new relationship, and we don't allow the difficult and trajectory creating experience of hardship in the human condition to be experienced by us. We don't allow ourselves to experience it. And by not allowing ourselves to experience it, we somewhat reduce the capacity of the future. Because anybody who self-actualizes, or anybody who grows through long-term movements, so like not just, zigzag or, peaks and valleys type of movements, but real stable long-term positive trajectories, they continue to take and take and take and gain from that season of adversity in order to fuel it. This can go into shadow too, but I wanted to talk about this specifically in the context of the 2024 year cycle. If you're watching this in 2024, it resonates now, and if you're watching it from the future, maybe do some past reversion about the year of 2024 and how this was like maybe operating in your life, because it's very prevalent for the collective right now. So in most cases, 2024 has given people a lot of progress. There are many lines of trajectory I feel that people are okay on. It's not, to me, a dark night of the soul kind of year. It could be made out to be that way if we wanted to experience a story like that, but I feel at a material level it's just not quite that. But what's difficult about 2024 is it is beginning to request that people divest themselves of certain securities in order to step onto the more sage-like path for them. Maybe that's the right way to describe it. Just, people change over time, right? And it requires them to also make adjustments in their own lives. Like, it's a very difficult time for adjustments, yet it's required. So that's kind of evocative of the way this year's frequency feels to me, is it's kind of like people have changed. Long-running securities that have been results of our past selves or have been results of our previous purposes now need to be adjusted, but there is a counterforce working towards that adjustment that wants to really set in stone certain stabilities and wants to kind of get very ancient with things. The ancient people were very strong about this idea of setting things into stone. For example, like the pyramids. Okay, they're still there. They're set in stone. They have not moved for all that time. The Central and South American ruins. Okay, they're still there. Whereas compared to more modern times, I'm not sure how permanent these are. But there was this. This is an ancient psychology that's been coming back up to the surface as humanity evolves in a spiral, psychologically and consciously, where there's this want to be I want to immortalize this construct, or I want to never have to have this problem again, or I want such a powerful security that it withstands at an infinite kind of level. The problem with this is that it's quite dehumanizing, and it can suck up a lot of our life force. So, when you think about things that last thousands of years, these are hundreds of generations maybe that, it goes through. So when you're working with that kind of energy, it can be easy to not be valuing your own independent life. If you have a lot of really powerful ideas about where you want to be or where you want to go, this is ambition in shadow. When you have a lot of things that you want to really accomplish or do, and you try to take stock of all these things, like the magician card in the tarot, it's I've got all these different things. How do I alchemize, an optimum result, or something that, combines all of this, or how do I consolidate all of this? If you're working through something like that here, I would tone it down a little bit, and I would start to work more on honoring and venerating the actual chapter that you're in, and not trying to enforce a really rigid change. Enforcing a really rigid change in the 2024 year cycle will deprive a lot of people of at least 2 or 3 years worth of powerful returns that they would have gotten from the previous stories. So we are in an ending phase. We are in anaretic Neptune and Pisces. Neptune is in the last degree of the zodiac. Pluto is moving back to the final degree of Capricorn. For those of you who are subscribed, you know I talk about this. So because of that, it's just a little bit undercooked to totally start out on something brand new. Now, that does not mean that we cannot be dreaming for the future. That does not mean that we can't be setting up network or setting up structures for like new spontaneous purpose. But there should, to some extent, be here the result of a very long-term chapter. And this is a very human thing. Okay, this is a very human thing. It's like, I want to leave this situation before I actually get the result of it. I've dabbled in this or I've flirted with this and I want to go before I actually get the real karma for it or before I actually really understand it. And I'm seeing that right now. I'm seeing people plaster over some of the things which are indicating the actual structural reality of the choices they've made because of the return. So, if we start having a lot of scarcity in our life, we need to feel that because it indicates something about the structures in our lives and our relationships to those structures. If we're experiencing a breakup or a divorce, we need to experience that and not plaster that over with a rebound relationship or with a lot of, coping, escapism, substances, so that we can actually feel what this is meant to feel and we can actually act appropriately in response to it. Because when you plaster things over, it confuses the situation really bad. I actually love these words, plaster over. It just came up while I was meditating before this video. I'm like, oh my gosh, there are so many people who are plastering over the realities of their lives. Like the wall or of the house has mold on it. Let's just put some wallpaper over it or something. I think I'm going to put makeup onto my acne instead of, actually working on the inside of my body. That's already toned down quite a lot ever since we went into 2020. We had actually a climax of that in 2019. And then what happened in 2020 led to people actually detaching from that a little bit. But here's a chance where it could really resurge. And this period of time is deciding whether or not people actually sort of step out of that sort of plastered over, sort of airbrushed reality, and whether they get into a more substantial energy line. For those of you who are really on the brink of spiritual learning in 2019, you would have already been starting to adjust to it. I know that was happening to me. I was already kind of not feeling the whole aesthetic body culture even by then. I would say that started to leave me even by March of 2018. That was already starting to leave me, which was very positive because in 2020 it was kind of force removed from a lot of people. And it's not to say that we need to look down on that or that, people can still enjoy the aesthetic nature of their body and life. But the problem is when we start plastering things over and we get confused by that result, and we think of it too realistically because it fogs the reality of the results in our lives, which fogs our relationship to the structures in our lives, which takes away our control over our lives. Because we can't really get the adequate intel about the status of things. Therefore, we can't really hope to make a decision that's actually powerful. So this is, Wood Dragon, guys. It's so good for thinking that is what happened. That is the condition of this. I'm not going to plaster that over. That is the condition of my body. That is the condition of this house. That is the condition of this, town or country or whatever. And we're not going to fake it and market it and pretend. We need to know what it's actually like so that, a choice that is meaningful can actually be made. And this actually makes it more possible to evolve or heal. Because if things are plastered over, why would you heal it? It looks fine. Does it really? But it looks why would you want to mess with it? But if we know things for the reality of what they are, there's more of a chance of being inspired to heal or fix something. I'm also feeling this, so this kind of branches off of this message a little bit, but I'm feeling this in regards to consumption as well. Addictions, hedonism, we need to touch on that a little bit after we got out of Jupiter and Taurus. Yeah, there's also a way that this plastering over effect kind of happens symbolically through the senses. So we might be having like a negative sense about our life, or we might be feeling like something's off, or we might be feeling, okay, I'm struggling to understand the significance of this location or this exact path. Like I'm kind of feeling bogged down in the fog. I'm not seeing the forest for the trees. Oftentimes people can want to escape that, right? So while we might not enjoy this situation, we might move into hedonism, or like, eating a lot of food that tastes really good to us, or a lot of sugar, a lot of, caffeine, or anything that kind of brings that feeling of joy. Alcoholism, substance abuse, things like that, we have to be very careful for with Saturn and Neptune and Pisces. And there are a lot of areas that that's also coming from, like social media and dopamine receptors in the brain, which is what, kind of addictions kind of revolve around, dopamine and brain chemistry that involves dopamine. So yeah, I think that that's a big part of this plastering over effect, because that would kind of like symbolically plaster over the sensory pleasure. I mean, this sounds maybe minute, but like we can't really underestimate the profound effect that this is having on like a mass of people, where like things might not feel right, or they might not necessarily need to feel like things feel right. But because of all the dopamine going on and surging through their bodies, it like kind of feels good, but it's a wrong situation, It's a difficult prayer, but one that I like is like, please don't let me feel like I'm in the right situation when I'm in the wrong situation. Don't let me have peace where I'm not meant to be. Like, that's not always an appropriate prayer or manifestation, but it's one that I have used quite a lot, and it's it kind of has a high cost, because there are some situations where people do just need to have peace where they are because it cannot be changed right now. But it kind of depends on the longevity of that. If it can be changed in the medium term, I'm not sure that we do need to have peace in it. But that's not absolute. It just very much depends on the scenario. But I will just say I'm feeling that there are some people right now who are meant to be having an experience of adversity. It's not really the right way to consider it. No one's really meant to have adversity. But there are some people who are just having adversity right now, or lack, or loss, or some type of long-running structure is maybe dissolving here, or under question at least. For those people that is happening to, it just may not be that this time is meant to feel wonderful, or meant to be plastered over with a lot of extravagance, or meant to taste really good, or meant to, have a lot of wonderful feelings, because maybe those are distracting, or maybe there's a need for quite a pivot, or maybe there's a need for something quite drastic to change, and through like a lot of comfort and, calmness or pleasure seeking, it might kind of be like a moot point, or it might be too stagnating. Is that something that Jupiter and Uranus and Taurus really taught us? It's like, okay, you have to be careful about even imposing too much comfort on yourself at a physical level, just at a physical level, senses, surroundings, because it can lead to too much comfort in the moment. And some people balance it appropriately, but most people don't. Most people can't control the comfort ratio in their lives. It's either like 0 or 100. There's no in between. And both sides are imbalanced. So finally, everyone, I just wanted to talk briefly about that today. It's something to reflect on during this juncture that we're at right now, is am I allowing the current chapter of my life to be what it is? Am I trying to force things to evolve? Am I trying to impose something on this chapter that is not like naturally here? Am I depriving myself of some type of story? Is it possible that because of the events that I'm facing right now, that in the future I may be able to reap a lot of motivation and power through this adversity? Maybe I don't need to numb out from it. Maybe I don't need to escape it. Maybe I don't need to pretend like it's not an adverse time, because maybe this is character defining for me, and I don't want to miss that. This is also a very powerful way to get through the difficulties that are quite inevitable for most people during this time, as we just kind of have to feel it in order to inspire the meaningful change. Anyway, if you're new to my channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button below. This channel is on Patreon. I post weekly tea chats over there and a lot of exciting premium content. Hit the thumbs up button below also to get this video out there and share it with someone who might be able to benefit from the message. I hope you all have a wonderful and safe summer. Talk to you soon. Bye.